Do you know how to tell a story? I'm not talking about just recounting the events of your day or relaying some interesting tidbits of information. I'm talking about storytelling that engages, captivates, and resonates deeply with your audience. Whether it's a small group of friends at dinner, your family at Thanksgiving, or a larger audience in a professional setting. What if I told you that storytelling isn't just a skill for performers, but something that could change how you communicate in every part of your life? Imagine that each time you tell a story, you have the power to influence, entertain, and connect with others in profound ways. That's exactly what Matthew Dix teaches us in his book Storyworthy, a guide on how to master the art of storytelling to engage, teach, persuade, and, ultimately, change your life. Dix, a storyteller who has won numerous Moth Story Slams, takes us on a journey through the process of finding, crafting, and telling stories that matter. At the heart of it all is one key concept. Every one of us has a story to tell, and the power to connect with others lies in how we tell it. This isn't just about having dramatic life experiences or being born with a gift for storytelling. It's about honing a skill that is within every person. A skill that, with practice, can unlock new ways of relating to others and sharing your experiences. And guess what? That skill can be learned. Matthew Dix doesn't just tell you that you should tell stories. He provides the tools and methods to help you find your own stories, craft them, and communicate them effectively. So how do we start? Let's break it down. Finding your story, homework for life. The first step in becoming a great storyteller is, surprisingly, finding your story. It's not about waiting for the next big event to happen, nor is it about recounting the most dramatic or exciting moments of your life. The key to finding a compelling story is in noticing the small moments, the little exchanges, thoughts, and situations that you might typically overlook. Dix refers to this practice as homework for life. Homework for life is a simple exercise that anyone can do. Each day, Dix encourages you to spend just 5 minutes reflecting on your day. Not on the big events like vacations or birthdays, but on the smaller, subtler moments. This could be a conversation with a colleague, a moment of joy or frustration, something that made you laugh, or an unexpected insight you had. The goal isn't to analyze these moments, but to recognize them as story-worthy. By doing this daily, you'll start to realize that stories don't have to come from big, dramatic events. Often, the most powerful stories come from the simplest moments of human interaction. Dix emphasizes that the key to finding stories is looking for change, a shift in emotion, realization, or understanding that happens over time. Let me give you an example. Imagine you have a day where you feel frustrated with something at work, maybe a task that keeps getting delayed. You could easily overlook this moment, but if you take a step back and reflect, you might realize that this frustration led you to an insight about your work habits or your patience. That frustration wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a moment of personal growth, and that growth is what can make it a story. Through homework for life, you're not just noticing what happens in your life. You're learning how to frame those moments into stories that carry meaning. By the end of a year of reflecting, you will have 365 moments that could serve as the foundation for a great story. And this, according to Dix, is one of the most critical aspects of storytelling, recognizing that the small, everyday experiences are just as important as the big ones. Crafting your story, the art of editing. Once you've found your story, the next step is to craft it. This is where many storytellers go wrong. They try to tell everything. They want to include all the details, all the events that led up to the moment, all the background information that explains the story. But as Dix points out, less is more when it comes to storytelling. Good storytelling isn't about telling every detail of an event. It's about honing in on the moments that matter. Dix uses the example of a story about a childhood memory. Instead of detailing every event leading up to the moment, he zooms in on the turning point, the exact moment when the story shifts and when the character, in this case himself, changes. He doesn't get bogged down by extraneous details. He focuses on the core of the story. This is where editing comes in. Editing isn't just about cutting things for the sake of brevity. It's about finding the essence of your story and leaving out anything that doesn't serve that essence. Dix describes this as compression. If you're telling a story about a summer trip, for example, instead of recounting the entire trip, focus on one key moment. The moment when you realize something important, the moment that defined the trip for you. That's what people will remember. Here's a tip from Dix. If you can't explain the point of your story in one sentence, then it's not ready yet. Every good story has a clear beginning, middle, and end. But more importantly, it has a point, a central idea or theme that makes it worth telling. The power of vulnerability, making your story real. One of the most impactful aspects of a great story is vulnerability. Dix emphasizes that the best stories are the ones where the storyteller is open, authentic, and self-deprecating. Vulnerability doesn't mean oversharing personal details or diving into extreme emotional territories just for the sake of eliciting sympathy. It means being real with your audience, showing them that you are human and that the story you are telling has meaning because it reflects a truth about your life. Let's take a moment to think about this. Have you ever heard a storyteller pour their heart into a story, only to have it fall flat because they were trying too hard to create drama? The audience picks up on that. They can tell when the emotion isn't genuine, when the storyteller is too caught up in impressing them. Dix warns against this, reminding us that a good story doesn't need to be dramatic to be impactful. Sometimes, the most powerful moments are the ones where the storyteller is simply being honest about their experiences. Imagine a story where the storyteller talks about a failure or a mistake they made, something they are ashamed of or embarrassed by. This moment of vulnerability invites the audience to connect with the storyteller. It makes the story feel real, and it makes the storyteller feel human. That connection is what transforms a good story into a great one. This is why storytelling has the power to change people. It's not just about entertainment. It's about sharing human experiences and understanding that we are all imperfect, vulnerable beings. A story that is shared with honesty creates empathy, and empathy creates connection. The stakes, making your story compelling. For a story to be truly compelling, it has to have stakes. What's at risk in your story? What's on the line for the character, in this case you, the storyteller? Dix teaches that the stakes are what drive the tension in a story. Without stakes, there's no reason for the audience to care about what happens next. Take a moment to think about your favorite movies or books. In each one, there's something at risk, whether it's the character's safety, their happiness, their relationships, or their future. In a story, the audience needs to know what's at stake so they are invested in the outcome. In your personal storytelling, stakes are just as important. If you're telling a story about a difficult conversation with a friend, for example, what's on the line? What does the character you stand to lose or gain? Maybe it's a friendship, a job, or your own sense of self-respect. Whatever it is, make sure the audience understands that there's something valuable at risk. Dix emphasizes that great stories are driven by the tension between the stakes. The more we care about what's at risk, the more invested we become in the story. The ending, leaving room for reflection. Now, after you've built up the story, created tension, and introduced the stakes, you need to end it. Dix argues that the best stories don't have perfectly wrapped up endings. They don't give you all the answers. Instead, the ending should leave space for reflection, both for you as the storyteller and for the audience. It should make people think, what's next? What does this mean for me? The ending of your story isn't just the moment when things settle down or the conflict is resolved. It's the moment when the audience understands the significance of everything that's come before it. The best endings aren't about closure. They're about understanding. They invite the audience to draw their own conclusions, to reflect on what they've just heard. Telling your story, the performance element. Finally, let's talk about the performance. Whether you're telling your story to a group of friends or standing on stage at a story slam, the way you deliver your story matters. This doesn't mean performing or acting. Dix warns against sounding too rehearsed or overly dramatic. Instead, storytelling should feel like a conversation. It should feel spontaneous and authentic. Dix suggests practicing your stories in front of a mirror, in front of friends, or even recording yourself. This is important because the more familiar you are with your story, the more comfortable you'll feel telling it. And the more comfortable you are, the more engaged your audience will be. In conclusion, your life is full of stories. Storyworthy is not just about storytelling. It's about understanding the value of your own life's experiences and the power of sharing them. Dix teaches us that everyone has stories worth telling, and through practice, you can transform those everyday moments into stories that connect with others on a deep, emotional level. So, what's your story? What small, seemingly insignificant moment from your life has the potential to become a story that connects you to others? What lesson, insight, or truth can you share that will not only entertain but also change the way people see the world? Your stories are waiting to be told. The only thing standing between you and the life-changing power of storytelling is the courage to start.